Welcome, friends. It's the Nope Coach Podcast, episode 10. This might really bomb. And I'm your host, Suzanne Kohlberg. I think for so many of us, we have goals, we have dreams, we have things that excite us. And what holds us back from taking that very first step is the often unconscious thought, this might really bomb. Have you ever thought about something that you've wanted to do? Write a book, launch a program, become an entrepreneur, do a dance, write a song, paint, some calling of your heart that to your logical self, you're like, this might really bomb. This is risky. I could be embarrassed. I could be humiliated. What if no one cares? What if there's haters and trolls? And this overthinking keeps us stuck in inaction. And then we see other people doing what we're dreaming about and thinking, oh, it's already been done. I remember a few years ago, I had a client and she wanted to do a subscription service of boxes in the mail for entrepreneurs, like an entrepreneurial toolkit month to month. And she sat on the idea for years. And then a person launched that very thing. And she's like, well, I can't do it now. It's already been done. I don't want to look like a copycat. Or what if my version of it bombs? It doesn't do well. And there are so many industries where we don't question that. Like, I'm an avid reader and I have wrote thus far the sum total of one book, but I've read thousands, maybe even tens of thousands. I read at least 2 books a week, sometimes more. Every time a new book comes out, I don't ever think that's it. The creativity's gone. The well is dry. There's going to be no more new books in the world. I'm excited to read it. I'm excited to explore it. I'm excited to get into it, especially if it's an author that I have read before and enjoyed. And then sometimes it's disappointing. I remember a series I was reading recently. First 2 books I could not put down. The third book I trudged through because I'd read the first 2. And the 4th book did not finish. And I didn't realize I'd already pre-ordered the 5th book because when I loved the first 2 so much, I just went in and hit pre-order. And it's arrived and I haven't even touched it because book 4 did not finish. For some people, that book series will be amazing. They'll love every single one and they'll go deeper and deeper and deeper. And for others like me, they would have read part of it and been like, it's not resonating anymore. Did not finish. And for other people, they would have picked it up in the first place. Other people's experience of our work isn't nearly as important as our own. So, for example, this podcast, I've wanted a solo podcast for years. The very first podcast I listened to, pretty sure it was 2015, I started listening to them. So I was quite late to the game, so to speak, as opposed to other podcast listeners. My husband was really into them. And it was called Cut the Fat Podcast. I don't even know if it's still going because I don't listen to it anymore. But I remember listening to it as I did my walks. I was 150 kilos, which is 330 pounds at the time. And I was like, one day I want to have a podcast. And I laughed that I was so adamant about a solo podcast when that is a dual hosted one. But anywho, I was like, who would want to listen to me? I don't know what I want to talk about. I don't know, all that sort of stuff. Fast forward 7 years to 2022, and I started my co-hosted podcast over it with Kristan and Suzanne, which I love, but I still had this inkling, this need to just want to do my own show so I can totally do it my own way. No intro, no bells and whistles. Just I speak, I record. If it resonates, wonderful. If it doesn't, what is it doing for me? And I think so often in business, the me is beaten out of us because it's like, it's all about the client. It's all about the client. Now, I'm not saying things aren't about the client. I'm not saying be totally self-led and ignore everybody else. But if you don't include yourself in your circle of care, that's the road to martyrdom. It's all about them. It's all about everyone else. And so with this show, when I sat down to record it, I can't believe we're at episode 10 already, because I only began it last week. And I recorded 3 episodes on a Wednesday, set it all up with the amazing Birdie. Birdie.co, I think, is her website. If you need any help with your website, shout out to Birdie. She's amazing. And she set it up on my website. And then I hit record. We uploaded it. And Birdie's like, do you want a description? I'm like, nope, don't want show notes. Just want title, headings, recording. That's it. And I went to bed. And then I woke up and I was like, really quite early the next day going, what if this is a totally bomb? Like, I don't think this is a good idea. Maybe I should take it down. And I'd already had such great response, but it wasn't the response from the listeners. It was the response for me to be able to speak the truth of my heart about topics that inspired me and hopefully resonate with others. And it's a space to tell the truth about my life. How often do we not tell the truth about our lives? We hide behind edited photos and filters and inspirational quotes and captions, and everything looks fine on the outside, but in the inside, it's a total shit show. And I think what I love to speak about or share is the full spectrum of the human experience, or at least my experience, the ups and downs, the ins and outs, the things you get really excited about, like, this is going to be the thing. And then 5 minutes later, what was I thinking? And the staying power to stay in the room, because it's easy to initiate something. It's easy to plant seeds. It's easy to get started. And it's funny, this is what I was talking about. Today, I did a module of my program, Why Wait, and talk about the seasons of life. And, you know, the spring, the initiation, the planting. A lot of us are most comfortable in the phase of the new. And then as we transition into the summer, the consistent, persistent action, the weeding, the watering, the protecting our crop from pests or rodents or whatever, it's kind of like, ugh, I'm out. And not even mentioning when we get to the autumn, I know some of you guys call it fall. In Australia, we refer to it as autumn, the harvest. If we're not yet where we want to be, how we can just hold on and hold on and hold on. And if you see your life as linear, you can see the resistance to moving into the winter, because winter would mean the end. Winter being death. But if you see your life as linear, after every winter is another spring. And if you do the harvest and you take the lessons and you move them forward into the next season, into the next cycle, how much further can you get from where you are now? I'm thinking of this podcast a year from now. I'll probably listen back to these first episodes and I will be thinking, wow, they really bombed. But you can't get good at what you don't do. So often we look to the future and what we want it to look like. We want to look at a body of work, which begins with the first step, the first email, the first client, the first podcast. And it's always expanding. Like, I've written an email newsletter for 6 years this year, coming up. I started in June 2017, so 6 years. I love it. I love writing. And now I'm exploring a new frontier of speaking off the cuff, no notes, just whatever is coming to mind at the time that I hit record. And that of today happens to be how often we hold ourselves back from even starting due to the thought that this might really bomb. And guess what? It might. Version 1, level 1, season 1 might bomb. But if you take those lessons and move forward into level 2, season 2, and you get better by doing, you learn by doing, how different your life would be. I hope that's been helpful. I would love it. Shout out to the 15 of you so far who have reviewed this show. I cannot speak highly enough of how it warms my heart to read those reviews. And yeah, if you haven't yet done so, I really appreciate a rating, a review, a share. And I invite you to think about, what is something that has been on the edges, on the fringes, in the back of your mind? I'd love to write a book one day. I'd love to write a song, choreograph a dance, launch a business, whatever it is. And are you holding yourself back from fear that it might really bomb, or embarrassment? And how can you remind yourself you can't get good at what you don't do? And baby steps all the way. I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.